Hey, Prime members! Are you tired of ads interfering with your favorite podcasts? Good news! With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free podcasts. That's amazon.com/ad-free podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
Have you ever wondered what a single idea could do for your life? Maybe it's something you've been looking for, or maybe it's something you didn't even know you needed. At Paper Napkin Wisdom, our newsletter delivers small, actionable ideas that lead to big results. Don't miss out. Sign up now at papernapkinwisdom.com.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govindh Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govindh Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 224. Have you ever wondered what truly defines success? What if the key to unlocking your full potential was simpler than you think? Today, we have someone who can help you see leadership and business growth in a whole new way, Todd Palmer. Imagine what it would be like if you had complete clarity on your purpose. How much easier would decision-making be? Todd is a business coach, author, and former CDO who has guided countless entrepreneurs towards success by helping them redefine what truly matters. And today, he's here to share simple yet profound tools that could shift your entire perspective. Todd's insights might just be the breakthrough you're looking for. So, as you sit back and absorb this conversation, you might start to realize how much of this applies directly to your journey. And when you hear that one piece of wisdom that truly resonates, go ahead, write it down, snap a picture, and share it with me. Hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom. Let's begin. Here's Todd. Todd Palmer, welcome back to Paper Napkin Wisdom. I am stoked to have you back.
I am honored to be back. I'm grateful and appreciative that you thought our conversation the first time was so valuable for your audience that you decided to bring me back. So thank you very much.
Well, it's a privilege. If you have not checked out the previous episode, I talk about it in the intro, but go back, listen to that episode after you're done with this one, because it doesn't matter which order you're going to do them in. Todd drops tons of wisdom very, very quickly. So fasten your seatbelt. I know it's going to be a good one. Todd, you shared you got a little more creative this time. You drew a little picture on the napkin this time. So you've got two circles. On one circle, on the left circle, you've got why/purpose. And on the right circle, you've got personal definition of success. And in the middle of that Venn diagram, you shaded it in and called that the zone of genius. Why did you share that with me today?
Well, it's interesting because I work with so many CEOs and coaching them and working with the EO forums and retreats and things like that. And people will often comment about my energy. And they'll say, you came from Detroit to Vancouver. And I go, how are you so energetic? I say, well, because I'm living in my zone of genius. They said, what is that? I said, it's my zone of genius is where my why, which I was blessed to spend time with Simon Sinek to figure out, which is doing what I want, my why is improve lives, which I can do for anyone at any time, at anywhere, for a fee or for free. Giving back is an important part of that. Then I had the second circle is my personal definition of success, which I got from Tony Robbins. Always give credit where credit is due, which is doing what I want, where I want, with whom I want, as often as I want. And when those two intersect and overlap in that zone, that's the zone of genius. That's where I'm living my best life. That's where my life by design comes to full fruition. And I find with the people that I coach and work with, they really struggle trying to figure out where that zone of genius is. So I always like to talk to them about and model for them how I figured it out for myself.
Love that. And again, in just a couple sentences, you've dropped a lot there. You talked about your why first, your purpose first, right? And then you work with Simon Sinek to discover your why. And how much did your perspective about all of this change after that discovery?
It changed everything. So I know in our first talk, we talked a little about my business, Diversified Industrial Staffing, which I exited in 2018. But that was just a general staffing company. I was, anything for a buck temps. And once I figured out our why, which is improve lives, I was able to draw it out for my staff. And if you think of most recruiting companies, we place skilled trades people around the United States. And so you've got the candidate, the job seeker, and you have the company looking for the person. And the recruiter brings them together. In a lot of recruiting firms, the recruiter sits at the top of that pyramid. It's about me. We did the inverse of that. When we made it about the candidate first, candidate-centric, tied in the company second, then we got paid at the bottom because that's where the money fell to. And so when we tied into the improved lives piece at the center of that triangle, we would make decisions that if the job did not improve the life of the candidate, we did not encourage them to take the job. If the candidate did not improve the business, we did not encourage the company to take the employee. Only when those two pieces came together, then did we feel comfortable as a recruiting company to make that recommendation to hire Bob, Jane, or Fred. And that changed how the business run. When I was out of the office, the team could make a decision on whether we should make a placement or not based upon that diagram of did it improve the lives of the candidates. We would have clients that would say ridiculous things to us like, you got Bob who's making $25 an hour. Do you think he'll come work here for 22? Well, that doesn't improve Bob's life. Now, I would say to my clients, like, well, now Bob's got to go home to his wife and say, hey, I'm going to take this job through this recruiting company to leave a place I've been at for 5 years. And they want me to take a pay cut. Honey, how do you feel about that? I said, you can't. I go, there's no way we can have that conversation. So we just felt that when we created that model of improving lives, it answered so many questions, and it was easy to teach because it was easy to diagram out and easy for people to absorb because it really landed with them.
What's interesting about it, I mean, you gave an example. It's very quantitative, right? Because it's easier to understand the quantitative, the $22 versus $25. But where you started was talking about improving the life of the employee, right? Or the candidate first. And that feels like there were a lot of qualitative measures involved in that too, but they become almost intuitive when you talk about improving someone's life. Like people can understand what that means. There's a lot of complexity that you've distilled into just 2 words, right?
Well, and I found for us, we had to have each candidate tell us what improved lives looked like to them. Was it a shift change? Was it a monetary thing? Were they underpaid? Was it a driving distance situation? What is it, a shift preference? And we would find out a lot, 85% of people leave a job because they don't like their boss. So as a recruiter, that we find out, why don't you like your boss? And is this boss any better? So you figure that out. But as we started digging into it, I think I haven't looked at this in like 5 years. Last time I saw, though, salary or income was the number 4 or number 5 reason why someone left a job. Yeah, the clients would always think, well, we just got to, it's a money thing. It's a money thing. It's a money thing. No, it's a culture thing. It's an environment thing. It's, do they want to be there? Is it a place where they feel it's psychologically safe? Do they feel they can be themselves? All these different factors. And oh, by the way, yeah, you've got to pay market rates.
Yeah. No, and I think that so I can see the simplicity that you found through the complexity to get there. So the second half of what you said is anywhere, anytime, with anyone for fee or for free, right? Yep. Something like that.
Yep.
There's a lot there, right? So you're really, okay. So distill it again. It's not about them. It's about you is what it sounds like.
Well,
right? It's about what energy you can bring to it.
Well, if I'm sitting with you and I sit down on a plane and we start talking and, you start talking about, we create a safe space and you start talking about some of the struggles in your life. I could whip up my business card and say, well, I'd love to coach you here. Here's what I charge. Here's what we're going to do. Well, that's a way to handle it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. We know people that behave that way. Or I can just help you. Because why do I coach people? Why do I do the work that I do? Why do I travel around the country? Is because of the energy it gives me. My joy is when the lights flash, when the eyes open up, like when they have a breakthrough. And they only can have that when they feel safe. So if I create that safe space, whether it's, in a airport or on a plane, or I did it the other day with my daughter at the grocery store, talking to this lady who was having a tough day. You can do it anywhere. And my belief system is, if I do that and I show up that way, I'm living truly my best life. Because it's where the living my purpose of improving this person's life and my definition of success and my choosing to do it. Certainly I want to make an income and get paid. There's no doubt about that. But if I can help somebody, I run into a lot of people who just can't afford a coach. And if I can help them and they can have a breakthrough all of a sudden, 3, 4, 5 years later, because I'll give someone my card. I'll get an email. Hey, this conversation we had 5 years ago really helped me out. I just wanted to let you know my life's completely different now. And I know we haven't kept in touch, but I just want to let you know, I want to express some gratitude and appreciation towards you. Like, it's a great day. Like, the day isn't going to get any better. Like, that is because I'm wired to get joy out of other people's success. So I know that about me. So when you said, well, it's about me, well, it's knowing who I am. It's that self-awareness. Like, I get my joy out of your success. So if I help you be successful, I feel good. But if it's all about me, it doesn't feel as good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess maybe I misspoke when I said it's all about you. It's about the energy you bring. It's about what you're bringing to it and maybe getting from it. So the second part of that, the personal definition of success, and that you said was a Tony Robbins quote, right? What I want, when I want, with whom I want, where I want.
As often
right?
as I want.
As often as I want, right? So that personal definition of success, when you're marrying those two things, right? When you're bringing those two things together into that zone of genius, how do you reconcile? How do you measure whether you're there or not? Do you know that? Now you must know it intuitively, but when you were playing with it, how did you find your way across those two things?
Great question. So I worked with a neuroscientist, Dr. Danny Friedland, for 8 years. And we would often talk about what gives me energy and what drains my energy. And every human being is different that way. And for me, when my energy would rise, when I would have an exchange with somebody, when I would be on stage, talking to an audience, and people would ask questions and they have understandings and breakthroughs, I was just living my best life. My energy would increase. So I would, when I do an EO forum retreat, sometimes I go, 8 to 12 hours. I promise you, when that's happening in the room at that 12-hour mark, I have more energy than at the hour 1 mark. The audience, the people I'm working with, are a little drained, but I'm fired up because they're getting breakthroughs. They're getting aha moments. They're having those light bulbs go off, and they are getting something they didn't have before the conversation. They're getting an insight, inner peace, a breakthrough moment, an aha experience, and they're changed forever. That, to me, that's the greatest work I can do. And it's always about them. It's never about me. I am just the catalyst and the facilitator. It's the work that they do. I don't fix anybody. They do the fixing, but they do the growing in the room. And when you've got someone, like I had someone sit with me a couple of weeks ago, they've been dealing with a problem for 8 years. We got them unstuck around the issue. They got 3 resolutions to the problem, and they went and solved it on our break. Something they've been dealing with 8 years.
Wow.
It just, yeah. I mean, it is the wild. I was like, man, I said the rest of the room, like, it doesn't get any better than that. So that's what magic looks like.
Right. And how inspiring is that to everyone else too, right? I mean, I don't want to digress away from that because there's so much that we've got to stay with, but that's got to be so empowering for everyone else to be part of that.
Well, it is, because it leads with vulnerability. So
right.
they're like, oh, we think we know what vulnerability looks like. And Brene Brown does a lot of great work around this, certainly, but it's when you see it in the room, when someone's vulnerable in that moment, there's a trigger that goes off in our brains like, okay, this is a safe space. I can take down the mask. I can show up. And when I show up, maybe I'll have that breakthrough too.
Right.
And the breakthrough comes from basically, being massively curious, validating the experience and mirroring back what they're talking about. And they will solve the problem. It's not a situation where I, as the coach or facilitator, solve their problem. They solve the problem. And when they leave feeling empowered versus arriving feeling depleted, for me, it just doesn't get any better. Not everybody's wired like me, but that's what fires me up.
So let's talk about that wiring a little bit, Todd, because I think it's really important. And I don't want to undersell this, because it's not like you just walk into a room willy-nilly and then jump into the zone of genius. I mean, maybe you do that a little bit more easily now, but you travel a lot. Like you're on the road. You quipped in the green room on the way in saying, "Oh yeah, well, I have to keep the light on in the bathroom because I don't remember where it is from hotel room
those hotel rooms, they don't put the bathrooms in the same spot, I tell you."
Yeah, it's walking into the wrong kind of closet would be a problem, right? So talk to me about how you prepare yourself to be in the zone of genius.
Oh God, no one's ever asked me that question, but there's a process I go through. So
let's go slowly through the process.
Mm-hmm. So I'm getting ready to go travel. I'm coming out to meet you, your forum, and we're gonna meet at your retreat. The first thing I remind myself is I get to do this. I don't have to do this. So I set an intention. Like there's one of the things that Dr. Danny and I worked on a lot was, is life happening for me or is life happening to me? And I just decided it's happening for me. So if I get to the airport and my flight's delayed, or there's a connecting issue, there's a travel thing I don't have any control over, I work through that. So because I have to maintain my energy so I can serve the room. Because a lot of times I get off the plane, get in the Uber, show up for the event. So first thing is I decide it's happening for me, not to me. I also remind myself when I get there, and also they have to do homework. So I know who I'm meeting with. Typically, not always, but typically, I'm going to meet with a group here coming up in a 3 weeks. I'm not going to know anything about it, but I know enough about how they're going to show up that I'll be able to serve them. And I remind myself, though, that I'm here to serve them. So the room will give me what it needs. So I don't go in with a lot of expectations. I go in with a lot of intentions. When I use the intention muscle, not the expectation muscle, I live in my neocortex. When I go in with a lot of expectations, I live in my amygdala. I am less apt to have a great experience. I am less apt to deliver a great experience. It's about them, not about me. So I start with an intention before I get there. Then I get to, this is happening for me, not to me. Then I move into what is my intention for this room, not my expectation of this room. And then I have to do the hardest thing for me possible, which is to be super patient. Super patient. If you could only read my thoughts. So if you and I were sitting there and I do this thing called what is the biggest stuck in your life? And you'll sit there with me and we'll talk through it. And I've had people say, I don't have any stucks, or they're stuck and they don't know what they're stuck around. And they're fumbling around. Well, in that fumble around, as that facilitator, as that coach, I have to be very comfortable with their discomfort. In our Western society, we always want to fix people. We want to make you feel better. I have to sit there and let you suffer through whatever you're going through. Now I have to use my voice as a tool. I have to use my techniques as a tool, but you have to do the work. And often it requires a lot of silence for me. So I'd say, Govindh, tell me more about that. You say, well, I don't know. That makes sense. So you're saying you don't know. I don't know, Todd. Take a guess. And all of a sudden, because their brain has to slow down. Their brain has to relax. And it can happen in microseconds. And to get them to like, well, if I was going to guess, I think it's blah. And in that throw up and show up, they're like, there's no greater phrase. Like I'm getting, the hair on my arms is rising. When someone says, I've never thought that, or I've never said that before. And I've been dealing with this issue like this one guy was dealing for 8 years.
That's amazing. So step one is, so to get into the zone of genius, you remind yourself that you get to do this.
I get to do
for you. This is happening for you, right? And I think it's easy with good things, right? And we talked about flight delays and other things, but it's almost like you have to apply that also when things aren't going great, right? Because you have to say, I have to take this big shitstorm and love it as if I'd chosen it for myself.
So a quick story. I'm in a group in Texas with a group from, I think they were EO Dallas. And we're about halfway through the day. And I go around there, I take a temperature. How's it going? How's it going? One woman says, you know what? I don't like you. Which is not something, I don't care what your personality is. Nobody wants to hear this. It's like, I don't like you. So that makes sense. I'm not everybody. I'm an acquired taste. That makes sense. I'd love to know what you don't like. I thought this was going to be a lecture. I thought this was going to be a teaching moment. You're getting us doing personal work and personal stories. And I know the theme of our retreat was the big unstuck or deeper connections, which is true. But you know what? To get unstuck, I need to learn how to get unstuck. And you're not teaching me. And she got really angry at me in front of all of her peers. Say, that makes sense. The first thing I thought of is, what's going on for her? Because we'd ask other people in the room, and I'm getting, this is great. We're getting 9s out of 10s, 10s out of 10s. And then she says, I don't like you.
0.
Yeah, less than 0. I think if she could have thrown me out, she would have. And so I asked myself, what's happening for her? So I depersonalized it. The second thing I said is, how can I make this happen for me, not to me?
Okay, so, but this is such an important thing. You've got so much EQ. Like, you're so in touch. You're an expert coach. You're a facilitator, not just, we talked about EO a bunch of times, but Vistage in other groups as well. So you are a well-respected, sought-after coach and retreat facilitator. And you still get this, and you still took a second. What happened in that second? Yes, you said what's happening for her, but how do you breathe from and get back into intention? Is there something that you did? Because I think that's something that a lot of people, that's not, because look, here's the thing in life, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like everybody, I don't care if you're the number 1 ranked athlete at what you do or number 150. Everybody has negative thoughts. Everybody gets confronted with challenge that they're not expecting. And the difference between the champs, the difference between how you reacted in that situation and how somebody else might, is how quickly you recover and let go of that and replace it with intention.
My intention is to serve the room. In order to serve the room, she has to have a voice. She shared her voice, and I asked her to share it. It's her thought. It's her opinion. There are plenty of people that don't like you, plenty of people that don't like me. She chose to share that. Where I stayed with her is I wanted to know why.
Curiosity, right?
Absolute massive curiosity. I said, what would you like me to do different? How can I better serve you? I always start off every room is like, I am here to serve you today. We have an agenda, but we can, forget the plan to go win the war, whatever we need to do. So you guys come out of here with whatever you need. So I will do whatever I can in the time we have together. So everybody here gets what they need, but I can only do that if you're not getting what you need. So I opened up the door for her. She wasn't like, hey, you suck. She's like, I opened the door for her. So I have a part in this. So I take responsibility for that. She has a part in that. What we found in her case was that she hadn't come and sat with me yet in the Big Unstuck, and her time was coming up and she didn't want to do it because she's going to have to be seen by her peers.
Yeah.
And so we got through the day. I know she's already made it clear she doesn't like me, but the group says, okay, it's your turn. You get, what is your Big Unstuck in life? She goes, I don't want to do it. Okay, you don't have to do it. But I'm really curious, why don't you want to do it? Is it because you don't like me? She's like, no, I've kind of warmed up to you. I said, well, thanks. And then she just started to cry. She didn't. I said, why? I said, you look like you're having a real emotional experience right now. Would you mind sharing with me? And I closed the space. I wanted her to feel like she was cared for. And she's probably mid-60s, close to 70 years old. She's an older member of the community. And I said, tell me what's going on for you. Not that you're good, bad, right or wrong, cry, sad. I'm not here to fix you. What's going on for you? She's like, I'm afraid to tell the truth. That makes sense. What if you just told me the truth? You think you might feel better? Nobody loves me is the biggest stuck in my life. And then she just started to cry.
I want to cry hearing that. That's awful.
And I said, so you're saying nobody loves you? I said, nobody on the earth loves you. I said, well, would it be okay if I told you I loved you? Because you're a fellow human being. And she giggled. She's like, well, not like that kind of love. I said, okay, what kind of love are you looking for? And then she goes into talking about her family. And then she reveals the only person who loves me for who I am is my grandson. I said, wow. Why do you think that is? Why is that the story you tell? And we just kind of unpacking it. And we spent like an hour and a half. Everybody's supposed to get 30 minutes. But remember, forget the plan, win the war. And we got her unstuck. Do it, close the day, rate the day, what worked, what didn't. Get to her last, not knowing where it's going to go. She's, well, I'd say the first half of the day was a 0 out of 10, but I'll give you a 10 out of 10 for the second half of the day. I feel a ton better. She goes, I was afraid to be vulnerable. And she's older. My generation wasn't taught how to be vulnerable. It was unsafe for me. And I was afraid I was going to be judged. And her itty bitty shitty committee was telling her all these things. That moment brought that group together in a way that was so incredibly transformative for everybody. There's younger people in their 20s and 30s and her or mid 60s. But my job is to stay in that misery with her. It's not fun to be told somebody doesn't like you. I promise you that.
Right. And it had nothing to do with you. And when you're in your zone of genius, you can breathe, be curious, and remember that, right?
Well, in that zone of genius, I'm going to definitely have to revise the photo because in that zone of genius, it's about them. It's not about me. But what I get when I make it about them is I get so much. People say, when I used to teach at university, people say, wow, your students must learn a lot from you. I say, oh, I learned more from them. And I really did. But I'm wired that way, just how my brain is designed. It's not about me, it's about them. And when you get into spaces where there are narcissists and there are people who don't understand that, it makes them uncomfortable. And in that discomfort is the opportunity for people to really be seen, heard, known, and accepted by other people, no matter how broken they might be.
And that's really that second part, right? Number one is I get to do this. Number two is I'm there to serve them.
I am there to serve them.
Staying in that intention muscle, making sure that you're not expecting to be patted on the back and applauded and praised all the time, but staying with your intention allows you to remain in that place, in that zone for you. That's how it works for you.
Right. And I remember living a life, when Danny was still alive, we would talk about when I was a CEO, he's like, you just don't seem happy. I said, I'm not. He goes, but I was volunteering for free. I was volunteering for EO. I feel like I should just be the EO spokesman today, but I was volunteering for EO through a program, the Accelerator program.
Yeah, great program.
And I was having such a good time and I was being of service. And that's kind of how I figured out coaching was for me, because I had 8 of them. I got 6 of them to $1 million in 1 year. It was their work, but it was the questions and how I showed up and the jarring and the back and the forth. But it was all about them. I'm proud for their success. But what it reinforced for me is, wow, I can actually do this. I could. And Danny would say, he was like, look at how much energy it gives you. Look how much you're ending your day in a better spot. When you go into the office, you're ending your day drained. He goes, what kind of life do you really want to live? I wanted to live a life that gave energy.
I love that. So talk about, you said the third part of this is really hard for you, right? Staying in the zone of genius, which is being super patient.
Which is being patient and trusting, because so that's where my fears come in. I've had a guy.
Before you what are your fears about that?
Oh, my fear is that. So my fear is that person really isn't going to trust me to talk, and so they're not going to get anything out of it. The room's not going to get anything out of it. So I had a guy sit with me. He goes, and he was the guy who hired me, which cracked me up. And he made himself go last. He was like, I've got nothing. My life is great. His business is rocking. My life is great. We never meet people whose life is great, but this guy, his life was great. I said, awesome. I said, you hired me. It was all guy. It was all guy. It was an all male group. I said, the other guys at dinner are absolutely going to bust your chops if you don't do the work. He's like, all right. He goes, but I got nothing. Cool. Now remember, the room will give me what it needs. The person will get, the reveal will come. So we're going about 30 minutes and business is rocking. This is rocking. That is rocking. I said, so let's go back. You said your business, I'll always do a callback. So your business is rocking. Tell me why your business rocks. Oh, because we do everything at a platinum to diamond level. Really? Yeah. We focus on perfection. I said, and his business is rocking. I said, I'm really curious. How does that show up in your marriage? Not good. Now remember, for 30 minutes, he was telling everybody how everything was great in his life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't show up good. Well, what does not good look like? And he gets really quiet. He goes, my wife thinks she's an absolute failure as a spouse. So based on what exactly? Well, she's not perfect. I said, okay. Are you perfect as a husband? Well, no. Are you perfect as a father? That's the question. And his kids were 3 and 5. He started to weep. He's like, I had to be perfect. And all of a sudden he starts talking. I had to be perfect as a kid. The only way to do things was perfect in my family, household of origin. Perfect. And he was an athlete. I had to be, football player. He goes, I had to have the perfect block and I had the perfect. I said, so it sounds like perfect has kind of served your business well, but maybe not your family. He's like, oh my God, it doesn't serve my family at all. I have to go fix this. He goes, I have to. And he just starts, and it was, he goes up and gives me a hug. I mean, but for him to, we can't read the label of our lives inside of the jar. We have to have someone point things out. And his business was rocking. And the people he hired seemed to be aligned with that mantra and that methodology. Okay, how's it working over here? Not so good.
So being super patient for you is getting comfortable with your own discomfort.
Oh yeah, them not opening up and them not sharing. Right. And but also watching the struggle of them. Like sometimes you can just feel that energy. Like
but you can't feel it if you're too absorbed with your own.
Oh gosh, no, it's about them.
Right. So you have to get comfortable with your own discomfort.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Well, I don't let it go. I get comfort with my discomfort because I know that's the only place the growth will take place. I have to stay uncomfortable because the only way you're going to get there is I'll be fine. Okay. I'll figure whatever. If you're making me really uncomfortable, then the issue is mine. But if I'm uncomfortable because you're uncomfortable, but I know the only way you're going to grow is to stay in that discomfort, it's my job to stay there. Come hell or high water. That's my job.
Love it. And you chose it.
And I chose it. And I get to do it. And they can pick a lot of facilitators. They pick me. This is an honor. Like being on your show, it's an honor. You could call 1 million people. You pick me today. I have to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. I love these 3 steps about getting into the zone of genius. Now, these are your 3 steps, and you worked on these 3 steps, and you've put yourself in a place where you're doing this all the time, and going through these 3 steps, so much so that's probably not even conscious anymore. You just know that this is what you need to do to be in that zone for you. How, if someone's listening, they're maybe in the fog and they're in the jar, how do they start to, what's the first place that you would say that they should start to discover how to get to their zone of genius?
Well, all I can tell you is my experience was I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. It's AA 101. Not that I have it's just whatever. I've never been through AA, but I've got clients and other people in my life who've been through there. And I just was sick and tired of ending my day drained. I was sick and tired of not feeling satisfied. I was sick and tired of thinking for whatever my internal need was, it was going to get filled from an external factor like money or success or whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's, drinking, sometimes people, food, whatever. I wasn't getting satisfied. And I just got sick and tired of that. And that's when I hired Danny. Like I solved most of my business problems with my first coach, but I was not a happy guy. And to the external world, it looked like I should be happy. And I wasn't. And that was really bothering me. And then, so that's when I had to look at how was I showing up? What was causing me to think doing this, that, or what have you, or making that kind of money would give me happiness? And I really had to dig into it. That's why I'm working on my 3rd book, Traumapreneur. My trauma was part of my bottleneck. How I was processing things from earlier stages in life was telling me a false narrative. The narrative that kept me safe as a 5-year-old wasn't the narrative that was keeping me safe as a 40-year-old, but it was still the same narrative I was using, just with a different coat of paint. So I had to change the narrative.
Exactly. And so this is really important for people listening, right? That you don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to stay in those traumas of the past. You can move forward and you can change. And the change is noticing first how you feel, what your energy is, what are you looking at?
It's the awareness. And sometimes I call it the burden of awareness. Sometimes it's a burden. Like, yeah, I know for me, when my sleep is not going well, there's something going on in my subconscious. And I just call it the burnout. So I'll get up at 3 a.m. and I'll just start journaling. Like, I got to clear. Something's going on that I can't identify. Now that's being too interdependent. If it goes for a day or two more, I'll reach out to my coach and say, hey, I need to have a conversation. There's something going on. I don't have necessarily the root issue. I don't know. And I don't have a solution or a solve. I just need to communicate this out with you. Help me figure this out. And it's rare. It's never what I think it is. Like with first appearance, it's never what we think it is.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing is being in that place where you notice how you feel, and noticing how you feel opens the door to start asking some questions and making some observations about yourself. Right.
Well,
And if you, now, so somebody out there is going to say, okay, this is all really well and good. Todd sold his company. He had some cash. He's stable and secure and better, but so he doesn't have to worry. Someone's saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What would you say to the person who says, you have to be focused on the outcome. You can't just be focused on being in your zone, because the outcome matters. The outcome matters. The outcome matters. What would you say to that person?
Well, I can just give my experience that by being in my zone, the outcome takes care of itself. It just,
Every time, right?
I have no problem saying I make more money now than when I was a CEO of a $10 million company. I have no problem saying that. I say that with not pride or false humility. Like, that's just a fact. It's a fact. It's a tax return fact. And because I'm not having to wear masks. When I was a CEO, I had to wear masks. When I was a CEO, I had to do a lot of different things for a lot of different people that necessarily I didn't want to do. And a lot of the stories I told myself is I have to do this for them. I have to do this. I have to, versus now I get to do these things. People will inevitably, innately gravitate towards what I do. And it's a relationship where there's such reciprocity. They get, by them doing the work, I get joy. And what people want to be, my experience, like when I do these retreats, like wow, it's just a joyful experience. It's hard, but it's satisfying at the end. It's not a happy experience. If you coaching someone, facilitating someone isn't always happy, but it's where the only place the growth occurs is in the discomfort, and you get out of there. The analogy I give people is like, if you want to get more muscles, you want to get a bigger bicep. The first thing you have to do is break down the bicep to allow it to grow, and it's going to be uncomfortable. The muscle is going to be sore, but that's the only way growth occurs. You can't take a pill. You can't. We have a magic wand. You can't have a magic drink. It doesn't work that way. Now, because of the suffering I went through, it's an experience that I can share with them that may not land with somebody else. And there may be other ways to do it that I don't know about yet. I'm always open to learn, but I do know that there's no shortcut to the growth, and the growth often comes from the journey of discomfort.
So, okay, other point. You're the Energizer Bunny. You have tons of energy. You do these retreats and these sessions and these things, and they last all day. Are you telling me that you don't need rest between reps, or are you saying that rest is a part of it too? Like, you have to know that too.
You have to know yourself. I will do back-to-backs. There will be time. Most I can typically be gone for is about 5 to 6 days. And so in the model, what's missing in the model is, what am I willing to sacrifice to go live in that zone of genius? So there's always a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. And
the sacrifice is I'm not home. And I like my home. I love the people in my home. I want to be here. I'm not, a lot of road warriors, like, I go on the road so I don't have to be at home and deal with the misses of the kids. I like them. So I know part of my re-energizing, because there is a point where the energy just, it's a good energy, but it's like, again, it's like playing sports. Wow, I had a great game and I'm tired. It's that kind of tired. It's a good kind of tired, not a drained kind of tired. And I have to come home. And I will sometimes build in, if I've got back-to-backs, I'll build in a night at home. It's a travel hassle, but I also know if I don't plug back into my people, I'm less effective. I'm less joyful. And there was one time I didn't do that, and I felt a little resentful to be on the road. And it was a thing, and it was a thing I was doing where I was making plenty of money, but it's like, the issue is me. I have to reframe this. All right, I know I can't do this again. I have to go home and recharge.
And that framed you very quickly back into the learning. You let go of the negative emotion that you attached to it, preserve the learning so that you could use that for the next time. And that's again, moving to intention from expectation puts you in the place of learning, puts you in the position where you can learn all the time.
Well, I used to have a really big struggle with the word failure. And I used to tell my internal dialogue was I was a complete failure. And it didn't serve me well. And it wasn't true. But I didn't learn it was true until someone else told me it wasn't true. Someone facilitated for me. Dr. Danny said, this is not true. I said, how is this not true? Because I was I talked about this last time, massively in debt. Bank was going to take my house. Like, I'm clearly, like, by all accounts, I failed as being an entrepreneur. He's like, no, you didn't. He's like, and you tell yourself that, and the brain doesn't know the difference between what you tell it and what it went through. So all you're doing is reinforcing the negative that didn't really happen. I said, I said, you weren't there. This happened before I met you. I was like, I failed. He's like, no, you didn't. He was like, failure doesn't exist. I'm like, come on. It's like, no, failure doesn't exist. He goes, it's a word in a dictionary. He goes, I'm telling you as someone who studied the brain, it doesn't exist. What happens is we reframe learning as failure. So he goes, just reverse it. Just reverse it. I'm like, oh. So literally for me, and I still struggle with it sometimes, but it lasts for minutes, not for weeks. Like, oh, I failed at that. Like, no, I learned.
Sure.
So, but it's the reps, it's the discipline to say failure doesn't exist. I trusted Danny. I mean, he's literally a world-renowned neuroscientist. Like, he's the guy for me. Like, he's not going to lie to me. But it was reframing that, because the itty bitty shitty committee in my head telling me how much it was a failure wasn't serving anybody well, and it wasn't allowing me to live my best life.
I love this. This was great. And as expected, we've gone over time. But sorry, Todd, I think you and I could talk for 3 days and make 40 of these podcasts. And I know I'm going to have you back. So I'm going to invite you now. Will you come back again?
Absolutely. You ask the best questions. I could talk to you for hours. You're right. We could do 40 of these.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, man.
What an incredible conversation with Todd Palmer. As you think back to what we covered today, you might begin to notice just how much of this wisdom applies directly to your own journey. Imagine what could happen if you truly and fully aligned your purpose with your definition of success. How much more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum would you experience? Todd shared so many powerful insights, and his 2-circle model, why purpose and personal definition of success, is such a simple yet transformative tool. As you reflect, you might start to realize which parts of today's conversation resonate most with you. Let's take a moment and think about some of those big takeaways. What happens when you deeply connect your success to your personal mission? How could strengthening connections elevate your leadership? What if your inner critic was wrong? What if you're more capable than you ever believed? What would change if you saw setbacks as stepping stones to growth? And how much more impact could you have by showing up as your true self? Now, take a moment. What's the one insight from today's conversation that truly stuck with you? Picture yourself applying it in your life. And as you do, grab a napkin, write it down, and share it using hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom. And let's see how that idea takes shape for you. If you found value in this episode, you might want to subscribe to Paper Napkin Wisdom, and it's possible that the next conversation could be the one that unlocks your next breakthrough. And if you haven't already, leaving a review could be the small action that helps another leader, another difference maker, discover the wisdom they need. If you loved this conversation, make sure to go and listen to Todd Palmer in episode 186. He drops a lot of great wisdom there too. Until next time, remember, small ideas can lead to big results. Keep taking action. Keep leading with purpose. And I'll see you in the next episode. Make it a great day.
O'Reilly. Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan.
It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE-certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
The way we work is changing every day, thanks in large part to the internet. So if you're an online creator, what can you do to create a sustainable future for yourself? On Attach Your Resume, creators share how their jobs work, especially during times like these where big changes are happening in the online world. Listen to interviews with internet reporter Taylor Lorenz, CEO of Patreon Jack Conte, representatives from Defector, Aftermath, and more. Whether you're an online creator yourself or curious about what's going on in the online Wild West, search Attach Your Resume wherever you listen to your podcasts.